My name is Shannon Cutts. I'm an animal sensitive and intuitive and animal communicator, a Reiki practitioner with animallovelanguages.com. This, of course, for those of you who are listening, all you hear is enthusiastic avian participation. I hope you interpret that as a hearty welcome. This is Pearl Cutts. He is my 23-year-old feathery sidekick and soul bird, and he never misses an episode. We've been together since he was 5 weeks old. So where I go, he goes. And don't worry, he will calm down when Miss Renee, our guest for today, starts speaking. He only screams through my intros. So want to welcome everyone who's listening or watching us on YouTube. Let's Talk to Animals really began as a request from the animals to share the basics of animal communication, who does it, how it works, de-woo it or demystify it, if you will, kind of reawaken each of us to the innate birthright ability to reconnect with the world around us, with the animals, the plants, the oceans, the planet. It's a time when our planet really needs us and is really speaking to us. And, so many of you that are listening or watching, maybe you're looking at your own pet or your companion animal right now, or your service animal, and you're thinking, I know they're trying to tell me something, probably many, many times a day, I just can't shake the feeling. And that is what we're talking about here on Let's Talk to Animals. And so today I have invited Renee from Sagittarius Way to come and speak with us. I saw her website and immediately resonated. I am also a fellow Sag. So shout out to any Sages who are also listening today. This is a special episode for us. Renee, you come to us, I believe, from Canada. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
From Canada, where it's, I think, still fairly chilly. It's actually quite chilly here right now in Houston. What's it like up there?
Well, I think so. I have to think Fahrenheit, right?
Mhm.
About 10 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, so fairly chilly.
We
Yeah.
just had the snow. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
very seasonally appropriate, I'd say.
yeah,
That's a true winter. That is a
yeah.
true winter. Well, we're
Oh, we'll go all the
delighted.
way till May.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, well, we're about to have a freeze. We always record these podcasts and vlogcasts a little early. We're about a month ahead of when we actually air them. And so it's March here right now, and it's actually still quite chilly. But Renee, so delighted that you made time to be here today. So happy to meet you. And we always just like to start out by talking a little bit about, or rewinding, if you will, going back to the beginning. How did you, so many of our listeners and viewers are just so interested in how they can even tell if it's happening to them. So if you would take us back to the beginning and share a little bit about how you awakened to these abilities, these gifts that were in your operating system, so to speak.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
going
wow.
going back to the beginning is for me is going to the
Yeah.
all the way back. So
Ah, nice.
I kind of grew up in not a nice environment, and animals
Okay.
were my caregivers in a way. So for
Mm.
me, as a girl, my best friend was a rooster, and the chicken they would take care of me. So I would think I grew up thinking everyone talked to their animals. It was the
Mm.
most normal thing for me ever because of that unsafe environment where I was growing up. So,
Yeah.
would talk and chat with animals, would say, oh, I'm off to school. The rooster would, mix up everyone in the neighborhood because he would then say goodbye to me. That wasn't at sunrise or sundown, that was in the day. So, you know, and he would say hello when I would come out of school. So, people would sometimes comment, you have a very weird rooster.
Aw.
So,
That's funny.
yeah, so it was very normal. Also, as a little girl, I had a dog, so you guys can see my
I
latest puppy there,
I
Milo.
do. I thought I saw a little snoozing pup in the corner over there.
Yeah,
Those
he's
of you who are
always.
podcasting us want to go to the video to see the cute little puppy, right?
I think so. Yeah.
For sure.
So I always had dogs who keep me safe too. There's some really dear stories around that as well. But I remember becoming a teenager and thinking, so no one actually talks to their animals. So I had a whole period of life where, I was like, okay, let's be normal. Let's be normal. Buckle down. And then I think when I became a mom, I started recognizing in my kids doing the same thing as me. So playing with energies outside in the garden and connecting with nature spirits and having whole conversations to the dog. We had a little Jack Russell at the time. And I like, okay, so this runs in the family.
Yes.
I better start picking things up, which was hard. And I think that's what the point is for a lot of people who started to become, I always say it, like re-interested in talking to animals, because
Mhm.
we all have that interest in us, because that's why we're so interested in it. So I always tell people, if you are interested in it, you already know. It's just that you're looking for the key to reawaken yourself. So I started reading books, and then I started studying with different teachers and in different schools, and getting the message over and over, like, well, I'm not sure if I can teach you anything anymore, but for me it was just reawakening. And I think the beauty of reawakening your gifts is that you are a teacher at one point and you're a student at another point, and you flip-flop between those two roles, because you always meet people who you learn from, and then you flip-flop around and then you're learning from someone else. So that's such a beautiful part of awakening your natural gifts that are in you, because sometimes it's just more like an ha-ha moment than relearning or learning something. It's just, you go like, yeah, you switch on the light and you go like, oh, but I already know that. And all of a sudden it starts flowing and you start putting energy into it, and you're feeding it, and it's blooming up, and it's like a forgotten garden that starts to bloom. And that was it for me. And I started playing with it. I started, of course, chatting to my own animals, but then the animals outside started to get in, like, oh, but we have something to say. So I started noticing the birds more, and everything else, and it started going from there. And then I think about 10 years ago, I started a little bit doing it more as a profession, and
Mhm.
Sagittarius Way I started when I immigrated to Canada. So I had the luxury of living all over the globe. So I lived in 8 different countries. I actually
Mm.
lived in Houston as well for a little bit.
Did you
Yeah, I did.
really?
Yeah, I
Now
did.
that's a whole nother podcast, I'm sure.
Yeah, and so everywhere I learned new things from animals I would meet. And pick up stories and seeing things. For me, it was also always connected to trauma, or people going through trauma, or animals going through trauma. Because I recognize it, right? It's a wounded soul that recognizes another wounded soul. And that's why it's so beautiful that there's so many people interested in talking to animals, as we all should, because we all have a special gift and all recognize special things into the animal or into the human that is connected to the animal. And for me, that is a really important part of it. And probably being a Sagittarius, half man, half animal, it
Mhm.
is really important for me to make that combination of blending the two, because we're just mammals living on a beautiful planet that we call home is Earth, and all of us want to take care of this planet and make sure it's going to be here for many many moons to go.
Thank you. I always say, I'm sure Mars is wonderful. It's probably a great place to go for a little mini vacation, but I like it here.
Me too.
I really think we could do something here. I think
Yeah.
we could, if we kind of come together. And, I also believe that the animals know a lot more than we do about how to salvage this home of ours, and how
I
to,
think so.
you
I
know,
think
how
we
to
just need to
how
learn
to
to listen.
regenerate,
Yeah.
learn to listen. And you know what, I almost stopped you and had you repeat what you said about reawakening, because I love how you put it, that if you're listening, it's already happening. Because I personally, I've interviewed people who came to it in early childhood, in the sense that they were very in tune and aware that there was something special, some kind of connection. I always loved animals. I have always lived with animals, but as my path was very different and didn't actually realize that the animals were inquiring if I'd like to take it, turn up the volume, so to speak, until much later in life. And so, but when I look back, I see instances where there was clearly a little bit of a light bulb going on, a ha moment. But life takes us in many different directions. And today I look back and I see how every experience that I've had along the way, including trauma, including recovery, including relationships, including all kinds of different interspecies connections, definitely connections with my own species, and how that all infuses into how I work with animals and their people today. And so I love what you said, for anyone who's listening or watching and thinking, well, I'm really curious about this, but I just don't really think it's in me, but it's something that sings to my heart. And I wish, like listening to somebody who sings really well and thinking, gosh, I wish I had that. It's like it's not like that. We all sing really well in the shower, and that's awesome. Not all of us are meant to be on the stage,
Yeah, yeah,
but we all have the ability to tune in with animals equally. That's in everybody's fundamental operating system. And so, just start looking back in your past, in your history, and look for those little moments, those humble, subtle moments where you felt a connection. If you can feel a connection with a being of your own species, you can feel a connection with a being from another species, and recognize that that's just your heart pulling you to look a little deeper, to give yourself the opportunity to ask questions and have experiences, and maybe discover that there's a whole new layer of what it means and feels like to be alive.
yeah.
So I'd love to pick up your story with, now you're kind of evolving because you've got so much going on your website, and you have some very unique ways that you work with people. And particularly, I was like hunting around, some communicators choose just to work with dogs or cats or horses. Some work with all species. Some choose, like, I have a special heart, obviously, for feathers and shells, and
Yeah.
as well as fur and fins and all that good stuff. But here we are, about 10 years ago, and you're starting to, as you said, take it pro. Maybe let other people know that you're doing this. So how did that unfold for you? And kind of where did that take you?
Yeah, well, I'm quite a tactile person and I need to see
Mm.
things. So I was already working as a massage therapist and I was already a Reiki master at that stage. And as a kid, I used to ride horses, or I used to be around horses, and I used to do a lot of vaulting, which is, I don't know, standing on a horse and things like that. So it's more
Wow.
for riding kind of thing. Uh, Very European sport, I guess.
Sounds very cool.
It was. So, I would hang on their backs and I would run around and ride them with no gear on them and just ride, with their manes. And they would always do what I imagined, that we should go left and they would go left. Oh, we should go right and they would go right. So that was very normal. So I ended up in a beautiful place in the world called Singapore, and my daughter begged me to go ride, and it's like, oh gosh, yeah, I loved riding at your age too, and so we started out looking at barns there. Interestingly enough, they started riding in Scotland. I'm quite a traveler, so I'm quite a
I'm
gypsy.
taking that up. I'm
Go
picking that
all
up.
over the
Yes,
globe.
for
So
sure, for
I hope
sure.
people just stay with me. It's not a bragging story at all. It's just my lifestyle. And Scotland is really, I feel very rooted in that country and very much at home. So it was so amazing that the reconnection with the animals happened there. And I put my hands on a couple of horses and would say to the owner, like, hey, this horse really has nerve pain going through his spine. And she's like, oh my God, I literally just hang up the vet and call, and she would explain the medical stuff, what was going on with the horse. I said, oh gosh, and then the first time you think it's a fluke, and then it happens 5 more times with different
Right, right.
animals, and you're like, oh wait, maybe this is not a fluke. So I'm quite the student. I love learning from anyone who wants to teach me. I'm never really looking for credentials, but um, I started learning massaging horses and treating horses for pain. The years before, I was also very lucky to study with some amazing hay-how riders, Sonia Choquette, Colette Baron-Reed, and I was in their year-long programs, and it was really amazing the way they just opened up. And then I ended up going to Arthur Findlay College in England,
Oh,
an
wow.
amazing college where they
Yes.
specialized in all kinds of gifts. So, uh, and that really kind of floodgated me, like, oh wow. So when I got back from that, I was like, okay, so maybe I should do something. But you know how you hesitate and then you start tripping over dogs and cats and oh,
Yes.
things are right in your face. So it was really interesting. So if people are listening to this story and go like, oh my God, you know, the Home and Garden magazine always falls out when I go shopping, or when I'm in a bookstore, this book keeps falling on the ground, or I'm sitting and waiting on the bus, and these kind of similar themes of stories are happening with people who are sitting there. Well, that's are your guides. They're nudging you and go like, "Come on,
Hmm.
it's time to go." And having said that, it's never about becoming famous, or it's never becoming, the most likes or the most shares on any social media. It's about your specific gift of working. And I love working with anyone who is showing up and wants to work. I am not, I think I'm too harsh if you are not ready, because I want you to move forward, and I see what you can do, and your animal knows what you can do. So that's why it's so beautiful that there are so many different people standing up, and you can become your own individual support system with your animals. So you can start doing this just basically to heal yourself. It's not necessarily something that you are going to do in your community or anything else. You're just going to do it for yourself. And animals are so pleased if we stand up and start taking some self-love towards ourselves and doing it for ourselves. So you're being inspired to share, and go, because you're very natural at making connection and getting the conversation going and things like that. So we all have our gifts, and yeah, just follow your heart, and you'll end up with the right person to learn. And the right person is already you, so you already have the right person around
It's
yourself.
so interesting. I haven't done a podcast like myself to share my whole story, but when you said Sonia Choquette, my heart just like leaped out of my chest. We share her in common, and um, you know, I've been through a whole lot of loss, and um, just a lot of change over the last year, and starting with my best friend passing, and unexpectedly, not from COVID either. So, and then she was a Reiki master, and I kind of had forgotten that I'd been attuned decades ago. But my dad was starting to decline in his health as she had passed, and I felt my hands turn on. And then one day, I'm running back and forth from the hospital to my house, to my parents' house, and, in between trying to catch a little sleep. And so one morning I woke up and I was trying to kind of meditate and calm myself down. And I heard, "You are an animal sensitive and intuitive." And I thought, well, that's very interesting. I mean, I love animals. And at that point, speaking of likes and social media, I, had quite a bit of interplay on social media talking about how to care for exotic species, and just, following my passion for connecting and sharing information, especially about turtles and tortoises and about cockatiels, right? And then I decided for my 50th birthday, I asked my my parents, they wanted to know what I wanted. And I said, I want to have a session with Sonia Choquette. I want to have a one-to-one. Like I've taken group classes, I'm in her Good Vibes tribe, but I want a session. And she asked you to kind of like write down a few questions. And so I wrote in and I said, I want to know what it means. I'm an animal sensitive and intuitive, thinking she'd be like, oh, well, you're a Sagittarius or you're, whatever the thing, or it's in your horoscope or whatever. And she was like, the first thing she said was, oh, that's a brilliant career path for you. And I was like, well, wait a minute, And it was like, okay, I really wasn't headed. And I love your humility and the humble way in which you share, the way that we work with other species, and how the student teacher relationship evolves and shifts and transforms all of us. Because when we're talking about uplifting souls and evolving spirits and improving well-being and enhancing communications, this isn't ego work. It doesn't work, because if you're in your mind, the intuitive connection is not going to be happening. And so you and I chatted just a little bit before we started this podcast about some of the special things that you offer your students and your clients. And I personally love what do you call them? You call them the quote cards. I think those are really cool. But one thing I didn't see on your website that you mentioned was meditation. So let's stop and talk a little bit about that, because in order to harness and access that humility and the openness that you've been referring to throughout, get out of the ego, because the ego isn't always about, oh, I've got 18,000 followers or whatever. The ego can be about, I can't do this. It's not possible for me. The ego, it's mental activity that interferes with, blocks, shuts down, or negates the connection. So I mean, we have Sonia in common. We have, we have our star sign in common. Let's talk about, because that's another shared love. Yeah. Meditation. And I've been meditating since I was 19, long before I had any inkling that I was an animal sensitive and intuitive. And I believe we all are, but I think that came to me so I would pay more attention, because that's, as Sonia said, a brilliant career path for me. Okay, but we all have it. But let's talk about, how meditation can help, because obviously you created these meditations for a reason. You saw a need. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so meditation is taking our boundaries away. So I know ego has a very bad rap these days, but ego is keeping us safe. We train our ego to keep us safe. They go through us our whole lives and see when we get hurt emotionally or mentally or body. And so they create a pattern and a behavior pattern for us to be safe. It's our grid around us. So being into meditation helps you to just connect with your soul, which is a very soft voice. It's a very soft voice, but very strong. It will not give up. So it will pull any strings it can find. And you do not need to be quiet. You do not need to sit in a certain pose. You can do it anywhere you want and you feel comfortable and safe. And warm, I always say, but that must be my Canadian.
Warm is no. I'm the same way. I cannot concentrate if I'm shivering.
Exactly. That's you want to be warm. So and you start simply by breathing in and out, and that could be more than enough, because it calms you down and it rests you down. And I've created a lot of meditations, and they're on Insight Timer. But I can leave you a link and you can go through my website.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, and it will take you to all the meditations that I've done. And it just helps you to connect, and I guide you on a journey, as many shamans do, or shamans, or how we want to pronounce that name, or the Aboriginals do when they go on a walkabout. And it's all about a journey where you then connect your soul with your animal that you need at that moment. And we all have our heart animal, that specific dog or cat, or that silly bird that was always
that
there.
silly bird that was always They're our joy guide, our joy guide.
I know,
I
or a
know.
rabbit. Someone is it's a snake or it's turtle. So there is no reason or rhyme why we get a heart connection with whatever species animal there is, but they're specifically for us. I get very fascinated by ants, and they while watching
Mm.
them, they take me on a journey. So I have several meditations to connect with your rabbit or your cat or your dog, and yeah, you can listen to them. It's all free, because my biggest dream is to have as many people connect with animals as possible, because it's healing and it calms us down. If people are really feeling blocked, I help them clean their Akashic records. It's something I also learned from our beautiful teacher, and I help them clean
Mhm.
it, take the blocks out. It's quite a process. But spring cleaning is too. If you start cleaning out your house, it's
Boy,
a lot of
isn't
work
this the
too.
truth? Yeah, yeah, very
And
true.
and meditation is not something that you be happy about straight away, but it's like learning a bike, and it will get easier and easier. And you need to find your own way of doing it. There is just not one specific way of meditating. I love doing it walking, but it's just my personality, and it's just I talk myself with every step I take into a certain space. So some people like lying down, other people sit a certain way. Um, so yeah, meditation is studied so well, and it has shown how we can heal our heart and our wounds as well at the same time. And I think looking at animals and see how different they are, that's the different medicine that we need, right? So
Mhm.
for me, the biggest thing is looking at animals that are close to our heart, a cat and a dog. If you see how a mommy cat raises her kittens, and you look at um, mommy dog, how she raises her dogs, totally different, right? One gets slapped and pushed around, and
Yeah.
the other one's carefully picked up and put. It's a
Mhm.
totally different energy, but that's okay, and that's why we have people who are really attracted to cats or really attracted to dogs. Um, and same with meditation. So you'll be attracted to a certain kind of meditation,
I
and
love
that will
that
bring you
point.
into that direction. And I really feel, there's so many sources out there who are just waiting for you to be picked up and go like, yes, teach me.
Mhm.
I know you are one, I am one, and there's so many other people who are willing, to listen and share. So yeah, anyone who's listening to this podcast, you touched on a diamond. So start connecting and feeling and
Exactly.
following every different kind of person that you are interviewing, and see who's my connection, because it has nothing to do with ego. So I channel the information down, and it comes through me, and there are words coming out of my mouth, and half the time I go like, gosh, I really hope this makes sense to you, because it's definitely not me.
It's not
But
for me. Yeah, it's
yeah,
not for it's for the person. And so often the really cool thing is that it does make sense to that person.
yeah,
And so even if there's, I mean, I hired animal communicators for many years before I ever dreamed. And I used to actually look at them. The singing analogy is apt because I grew up as a musician and spent many, many, many years writing songs and performing. And so, I used to look at animal communicators and think, gosh, that's really cool. I wish I could do that, but I can't. So I'll just hire one. So there was always the openness, but there wasn't the space or the time or the community around me to even suggest that that would be something that I could enter into. And so, one of the coolest things about my journey to hang out my own shingle and start this podcast and do the work that I do with clients of all species and as a mentor and a guide is the awesome people as well as pets that I've met along the way. The
Yeah.
awesome, I mean, I used to kind of think that I was just a little left of, like a little left of center. Like, do I have a tribe, you know? And it wasn't until I started really connecting with Sonia, and out of that, her Good Vibe Tribe, and out of that, so many different communities where we have similar interests and we have similar experiences, to realize, no, I do have people. We all have people. We all have a community. And that's one of the greatest gifts, is you get to learn more about yourself, and you get to meet people that inspire you every single day. I mean, animals are always inspiring, but people can be inspiring too. And this is, there's never been a better time to remember this.
Yeah, yeah.
There has
We're
never been a better time.
we're one. It's one. You know, that's it's something
Hmm.
that we always should remember. You
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
and I think really that you should do a podcast with your beautiful bird. It has so much to say.
I think every podcast is a podcast with my bird. I love that idea. I do. Maybe I could let him interview me. He has a lot to say about
He
his
does.
mama. He has a, and that's, it's really interesting. Speaking of meditation, for those of you who are listening and you're like, yeah, I can't do that, or it's just not for me, or, oh, this is one of the wonderful things that mine likes to say, oh yeah, we tried that. That didn't work. It's like, okay, look, try this. Meditate on your animal. I have a much longer story I could tell about that, and I'm not going to tell it right now. But just consider meditation as focus and concentration.
Yeah,
Then you'll see that you meditate all the time
all the
on all
time.
kinds of different things. If you're interested in animal communication, we have to assume that you are, since you're listening to a podcast called Let's Talk to Animals instead of a podcast called, How to Scrapbook Your Way to Success, or, how to use the Insight Timer app, or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Let's just start here. We'll start with a meditation on your own animal. Just notice just set aside 5 minutes and notice everything about your animal. And Renee, you mentioned that you have a specific meditation, and I definitely want to put this in the show notes. So please do send me that link. You have a meditation where people can listen and actually receive a message or a communication. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. Like, when I really encourage you to head over and get Renee's meditation and use it as a way to focus your attention and concentrate on your animal. And I want to hear about it. And Renee and I want to hear about it. If
absolutely.
we want to know what message you get.
Yes.
We
And
want to be your cheerleaders, your believing eyes, and encourage you that, yes, you can do this. And if there's some part of your brain that's saying, oh gosh, geez, there's so many animal communicators, the market is flooded, let me tell you, it's not. There will never be sufficient numbers of enlightened, aware, intuitively connected animal communicators to meet the need for the number of animals that wish to communicate with us. So please know, if you're interested, there is a place and a space for you, and all you need to do is just give it a try. Exactly. And Renee's meditation is the perfect way to do that. So Renee, it has been an honor and a joy. Your website is sagittariusway.com. I'm a Sag, and I have trouble spelling Sagittarius. I will put it in the show notes, but I'm also going to spell it out for you. SAGITTARIUS way, WAY.com.
Thank you.
Renee, thank you again for being with us. I feel very honored to meet a fellow Sag who is an animal intuitive, and to share this wonderful time together. Go give your puppy a hug from us, from me and my shrieking bird, who really wants to be the solo host of the podcast, right? Those of you who are listening or watching, if you've enjoyed today's episode, please consider leaving us a review. 5 stars would be great. Pearl suggests 50 stars, but whatever your app allows. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on all of your favorite podcasting links, depending on where you have found us. And if you'd like to share us out with your friends in your community, please do. If you have questions or you want to share your experiences, We love to hear from you. You can find us, myself, Pearl, and my tortoise Maltese, and our dachshund Flash Gordon at animallovelanguages.com. The other thing I want to just share real quick is look for the free tools tab under Learn with Me. A 5-day free animal communication camp that walks you through 5 of the main pathways that you can receive intuitive information from your animal or from any animal you want to talk to. So it has been a joy to be with you today. Until next time, we shriek all of our love out at you and and look forward to reconnecting with you next week with another wonderful guest to share the joys of interspecies communication. Okay, bye for now.